The Memorial Cup is one of the hardest trophies to win. Sometimes you only get one chance.
It's not easy when you're playing against the best of the best in junior hockey.
Everybody had their role. Everybody had their, their little niche in the team, and this is what your role is, and we ran with it.
Guys could have the best careers, but never end up winning the Memorial Cup because it's just a short span, and you have it's so hard because you have to win your league, and then you have to go and you lose a couple of games and you're done.
I never won a Stanley Cup, so winning for me, the Memorial Cup is that, and it's a real treat to look back on it now and reflect. Absolutely.
I just remember the whole atmosphere and the excitement. Every game meant so much. It got national attention, which was something different for all of us. I have 2 grandchildren, one more on the way, and they'll be able to look up in the history books and see that I did win the Memorial Cup.
It means everything. It's like any kind of where you can start, especially at this level, and continue on and get your name on any trophy.
Well, a lot of people say, and I agree, that it's harder to win the Memorial Cup than it is the Stanley Cup. And every time they lift it up, I always say, my name is on that, my name is on that. It's so proud, and a lot of great hot names on there, and I'm very proud to have my name on there too.
Once you've won something and won a championship and you've got your name engraved on there, it's there for life.
Like any championship, I mean, you just remember the guys you played with and the atmosphere surrounding it. It's nice to be called a champion at any league.
And it's something that'll be around for forever, and so it is very, very special, and I feel very, very blessed.
You're at a special group when you get your name on the Memorial Cup. That's for sure.
It's about memories. It's about memories for the fans, memories for the city, memories for parents, and obviously memories for the players that play in it. And that's the greatest thing about hockey.
When the First World War ended in November 11, 1918, the impact on Canada was immense. More than 600,000 Canadian soldiers went to Europe to fight. In many ways, those that did return to Canada were coming home to a whole new world. But the one thing those soldiers did recognize was hockey. The Stanley Cup had been competed for by professional teams for 25 years, but there wasn't a National Junior Hockey Championship trophy.
Well, there's 2 that actually rose to great fame, of course, from Kingston, Scotty Davidson and George Richardson, and that actually led to the birth of the Memorial Cup because they were hand-picked players that Captain Sutherland had chosen. Davidson went to turn pro, and he scored the Stanley Cup winning goal, Toronto's first Stanley Cup with the Blue Shirts in 1914. He enlisted that summer, one of the first Canadians to sign up to go overseas, and tragically died in battle just a few months later, the early part of 1915. And the same with George Richardson. He played at Queen's. He came from a very wealthy family, but most people felt that he was the best amateur player in the world. And he also went overseas and died about a year after Davidson did. And that led to Captain Sutherland starting the Memorial Cup in honor of hockey players who lost their lives in World War I.
There were players who were having very successful junior careers who put down their hockey sticks without being dramatic and picked up a rifle, went off and served Canada. You had hockey players coming back from overseas, and they were getting back into the game. And here you had the first Memorial Cup tournament in Toronto, and it happened to be the Regina Pats who had won in the West End. Researchers have shared with me that the first game was delayed to allow for troops and fans to go from the Union Station in Toronto down to the rink to catch the game, because the first game was when there was a whole bunch of troop trains coming in.
I think those guys would have been proud that, we were able to go on and do these kinds of things, and to have a Memorial Cup and a hockey championship, especially in Canada, because I'm sure a lot of those guys that went to war, they love the game of hockey, and it's a pretty special trophy, that's for sure.
The Memorial Cup is, it's exactly what it says. It's a memorial to people that, gave something up for the rest of us. That was their hard work, or what they did. And, for us, it's our hard work achieved something, and to be handed a Memorial Cup, and what that stands for it's important.
I think it just has a fabulous place in people's hearts, and in particular in the players. Everyone who I've talked to over the years has been very proud to be on a team that won the Cup or to be in the league that played for it.
The Memorial Cup started as a series between the champions from Eastern Canada and Western Canada. The University of Toronto schools defeated the Regina Pats to win the very first Memorial Cup in 1919. The Pats won again in 1930 and played in the Memorial Cup 11 times in the first 50 years of the championship. The Toronto Marlboros won back-to-back Memorial Cups in 1955 and 1956 and started a tradition for the Marlies that included 4 more national championships in the early era of the Memorial Cup.
Back in the 60s and 70s, there was only 6 teams. The chances of you being involved in the management or coaching of a professional team, a person in my position wasn't good, so the Memorial Cup was an ultimate goal for many of us.
I was probably, 15 at the time, thereabouts, and they just seemed to control every game from start to finish. I remember sitting right behind the bench at one of their games. Jim Gregory was the coach of that team, and I was somewhat amused because I remember him saying to the line, "Okay, you're out there and you're not coming off until you score," And you know what? You just knew they were going to score, right?
We had a talented team. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 12 players off on that team turned pro. I mean, it was one of the best-known clubs of all time. The way I get placed on a line with Pete Stemkowski and Wayne Carleton. Wayne turned pro with the Leafs. Peter did as well. And we had a good line. We all scored over 40 goals that year.
Each individual had a special personality. Everybody had a different character. I've had people tell me that, when you rate the Memorial Cup teams of all time, you could put that one in the top 5 or 6. So I still have great memories.
It was the Montreal Junior Canadiens in the finals for the East. They had Yvan Cournoyer on that team and Serge Savard. I mean, they got a pretty good team too. We were so strong. I think we won 4 in a row.
They were just so dominant, so deep, so much skill. They had everything back in the day, as they say, with size and speed and, passion. So it was just a fun experience to watch.
I had played close to 1,000 games, in the National Hockey League, and I have great memories, but if I wrote a book, probably the first 100 pages would be on a Toronto Marley team of that year. It was tremendous, it really was.
The Edmonton Oil Kings won 6 Western Canadian championships in a 7-year stretch and finally won the Memorial Cup in 1966. They won the Western Canadian Championship again in 1971 and awaited the winner of the Eastern Canada Series between the Quebec Remparts and the St. Catharines Blackhawks. That Eastern Canada final pitted future superstars Guy Lafleur against Marcel Dion. But the political landscape in the country was dominating the news headlines. The series was halted after 4 games when the St. Catharines players refused to return to Quebec to complete the series.
We had a team with talent, and we had a team that worked. We had a team with discipline. We had everything all together. I think it's not only talent, it's not only work ethic. It's a combination, and we had the right combination. Obviously we had Guy Lafleur playing one of the best players the best player in our league, and he became one of the best players at one time, the best player in the NHL.
Guy was special. Guy could score 5 goals in the game, and off the ice and in the dressing room was a nice guy. We were dreaming about it all year, because the year before they lost to the Montreal Canadiens junior team. So all the old players wanted to win, and from training camp on, we were talking about the Memorial Cup.
It was a wonderful year. We lost only 8 games during the season, and we won the 3 playoffs before to go to the the Memorial Cup, but the format was different at that time because we had to play against the Maritimes, we had to play against Ontario, and then the winner against the Western Canada League.
What I remember the most, it was the intense, the atmosphere. You know, you feel that, and you know, and I think everybody bought in, and everybody responded. Everybody had a job to do, and we all went in the same direction. And then you have success.
The Memorial Cup format was changed for the 1972 season, and for the first time, the champions from the 3 Canadian major junior leagues would meet in a round-robin tournament. The first tournament was hosted in the nation's capital, with the Cornwall Royals defeating the Peterborough Petes 2-1 in the championship game in Ottawa. The Toronto Marlies were back in championship form and claimed the 1973 championship with one of the strongest teams ever assembled. Just 2 years later, the Marlies were looking for another national championship, but they had their challenges in the Ontario playoffs.
What I remember most about that year, I believe there were 7 games that we had to win or we would have been eliminated.
We played the 8th place team in Kingston, and we took them to 8 games. We had to win in Kingston. We went to Sudbury, or they came to us, and we played them, and it went to 8 games, and John Anderson had to score in overtime in the 8th game to win it. Then we played Hamilton, and we beat them in 7 games. So adversity wasn't the problem.
George Armstrong say when your back's against the wall, you see how good you are, you know, and that's kind of what happened with us. I mean, in most elimination games, we won by a pretty big margin. And so I guess we were that good. We just had to believe in ourselves.
I think it was George Armstrong's talk to us before the game. And very similar, you know, he'd won 4 Stanley Cups, and how he felt through those games at the, you know, going into the Stanley Cup finals, and how he was also afraid. But you got out there and you just gave it everything you had, and you put all that, you know, behind you.
I remember carrying the cup. I remember winning it. I thought this was supposed to be what you do all the time. I thought this was the way it's supposed to be. You just go out and you win championships every year. Little did I realize how difficult it was, and since that time I've been lucky enough to be on a few, but that's spanning over 40 years.
I count myself very blessed playing on that Marley team and everything we had to go through to learn how to win.
The Pats now hadn't won a Memorial Cup since 1930, and you're thinking, this is the team that can do it. And you watched them and you kind of cheered for them and you marveled at their skills.
Guys like Dennis Sobchak and Clark Gillies and Greg Jolly, who had a lot of pressure on them because there was a lot expected of them. They came through, but so did all the other players.
One of the best forward lines I've ever seen was Sobchak, Gillies and Wanchuk. Clark Gillies on the left wing and Sobchak in the middle and Mike Wanchuk on the right wing. There's all these little guys, fresh-faced, and Clark looks like he's like 35 years old, stubble, and he looks toughest guy. Nobody would mess with him. And the secret was, don't get him too wound up, because if he wants to dominate a game, he can dominate it physically and offensively too.
We were talented, we were tough, and you know, we were pretty focused and healthy, of course. You know, we didn't get hurt too much.
It was a real tight bunch of good teammates, and I think we had a good cast of characters that everybody knew their role, and we had a good coach and we had a good manager, and you know, you got to get lucky when you win. And we did have some good skilled players, but it just all fell together.
Christmas time, we didn't take 2 or 3 weeks off. We ended up going to Sweden. Really, it was a men's tournament. We played against a men's league, and it really kept us focused and kept us going.
The team was forced to come together because we were in Stockholm and other Scandinavian cities, and you had to you bonded, you were together. And we played some really, really good hockey clubs. Russian teams, Finnish teams, Swedish teams, of course. And we didn't have a lot of success.
We were struggling, and then we went over to Europe and got beat up pretty good by all the Europeans and the Russians. But then when we came back, we got it together, and that lasted for the rest of the season in the playoffs. So that helped us a lot.
We came back, went into the second half of the season and really kind of breezed right through the second half of the season.
We played Calgary in the finals, and they were a good team. And once we got into the Memorial Cup, we were rolling, and so I don't think any team could have beat us.
We played the Quebec Ramparts for the final game, and they were a very good hockey club. And we were down 3-1 at the end of the first period. It was a pretty quiet dressing room for a while. There was no rah-rah, because we knew this is slipping away. We'd had a great playoff run and overcome some adversity, and we had to look back and look at ourselves and say, you know what, we can overcome this. We just have to come together. And we got great leadership from Dennis Sobchuk. Dennis stepped up and he said, we're going to win this game, and I'm going to get to 3 goals. And he went out and did it. And we came back from a 3-1 deficit at the end of the first period, came back and won it, and the rest is history, as they say.
Everybody was ecstatic, and that was the nice thing. And it was good to go back to Regina and saying, hey, here's what we did, and you guys were all part of it. So, nice accomplishment.
Dale Hawerchuk was, 16-year-old at the start of the season. He just did things that were so effortless. I played on his line, and you'd get the puck on your stick, and you go, how did that get there? He was that type of player. He was a great skater and a great playmaker and a great shooter, so he had everything going for him.
We were Ontario kids, but we played in the Q for geographical reasons, so we had a battle to get through Quebec. The first year we were Cinderella, so we had the adversity all year of, we had to beat the bigger boys or the older teams, and we did that.
And an unheralded defenseman, Robert Savard, who ended up winning 3 Memorial Cups, 2 with us, 1 with the Kitchener Rangers. And in that year, he scored the overtime winner in Regina. He hadn't scored a goal, I don't think, in the playoffs, but he went end-to-end in the overtime against Peterborough.
And he didn't score many goals. He was a defenseman, and for some reason it was his time to score, so it was a great feeling.
It added some young guys to our team over the summer. One guy being Doug Gilmore, who became a great, at that time, just a role player for us, and was our third line center, and was a fantastic player even then.
So now I'm going to a team that just won the Memorial Cup, and Dale Hawerchuk and I played against each other since we were 6 years old. And then obviously I played up a year when I lived in Kingston with Scotty O'Neill. I was pretty excited when I went to that hockey club. Dale was the backbone of that hockey club, obviously, and then I sat beside Mark Crawford in the dressing room all the time and had to tap him on the knee before every game. Couple goals.
Dougie coming in the back in the playoffs, because he really came into his own in the playoffs for us. And that Memorial Cup game, I looked at it about 20 years after we played it, and the guys that jump out at you in the game, obviously Hawerchuk is obvious, but Doug Gilmore was outstanding in that Memorial Cup championship game.
It just was a case of everybody coming together at the same time, and it wasn't just that weekend or that week that we were there.
It was going to be a tough series, but we rolled pretty good. We had our mojo in that Memorial Cup, and then of course won the final against Kitchener.
The Portland Winterhawks became the first U.S.-based team to compete for the Memorial Cup when they won the Western Canadian Championship in 1982. The following season, they would make history again when they hosted the Memorial Cup for the first time outside of Canada. It was also the first time the current tournament format was used. The 3 league champions would be joined by the host team to create the 4-team round-robin tournament format that is still used today.
Portland is an incredible place. They love sports. They supported the Winterhawks incredibly. I've never seen a junior hockey franchise with that kind of support. Everybody knew coming to Portland, playing in Portland was a pretty special thing.
That was the biggest thing, even to this day. The crowds and the crowds we got all year long. Like, they fell in love with their hockey team, and probably to this day.
We found out we were going to be the host team like halfway through the season, so
we had to, we wanted to prove that we belong there.
Playing at home in Portland, I think it was a big deal for us. Place was packed. We played in the old Coliseum, so there was 10,000 people there.
It certainly allowed the league, whichever league it was hosted in, to prepare for a big occasion with hotel rooms and bookings and ticket sales and planning. So it was a good idea. I think it's worked out very, very well, and the proof is in the pudding. It's been very, very successful, probably ongoing from the Memorial Cup that was held here in Portland.
I think we were just caught up in the moment, and it felt like there was a lot of stuff going around, but really we were just in a little bit of a bubble, kind of. That's how I felt, focusing, playing hockey and not realizing even the magnitude of the situation.
It's a good game, and I've watched that game over and over lots of times. What I remember the most was the celebration after it, with all the people.
Winning the last game, the celebration with your teammates and the coaching staff and just everybody that helped get you to that point, and then ultimately winning at the end was a big deal.
They were a powerhouse in junior A hockey, winning multiple Centennial Cups. So they ended up getting into the Western Hockey League, and that was my inaugural season.
We got instilled with what this really means to Prince Albert as a community and what that really meant for the civic pride, for everything, and how they stand behind the Raiders.
Within 3 years, Rick Wilson, Terry Simpson, and their scouting staff put together a Memorial Cup team. We took our lumps the first year, there's no question about it.
I think we had, 15 wins that first year, so it was a lot of hard times, and you learn to appreciate winning, and you learn to, more than like winning, you hated to lose.
Didn't like losing, and we had a good group of guys that wanted to get better and all wanted to be professional hockey players and had a real good mindset.
Strength that you take from those beatdowns when you just dip into your memory bank and you think about all those tough times, we would reiterate on that. Like as an older group, we would talk to the young guys. Like some guys were coming in as rookies, like Pat Olenek, and a few of these guys were younger, great hockey players, but this is their first taste.
A lot of scoring records against Prince Albert with those guys being part of it, and I think they really relished in the fact that that top line, they all scored 60 goals each, and I think they really relished in the fact that they were beat on and it was their time.
Terry Simpson taught us how to overcome challenges, and that's kind of what hockey is today. As soon as you get over climb a mountain and you're on to another adversity mountain climb. So that was one of the real lessons that I got out of playing on that team.
We were the #1 ranked team, I believe, in the CHL standings throughout the whole year.
We weren't just happy winning the Western Hockey League, that we wanted to go back as a Memorial Cup champ. And then we said, listen, we're playing some really good hockey teams here, and if we don't play our best, we're going to be out of here. And none of us would have been happy about that.
I mean, at some point, you're always going to go through adversity, and it's how you respond to it, right? And we just happened to have it in the first game, knowing that if you do that twice, could be out of the tournament as easy as you're in it.
When your players take ownership of your team is when you really have success, and those high-end guys that we had really took ownership of our group.
You remember back to that initial season where you took it on the chin, I think personally I probably had a black eye half the year, because everybody was taking advantage and royalties on you. And then when you go from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain in a very short period of time, I think you have a better appreciation.
Just the total sense of relief that it's over, you did it, it's done. Just that, it's a euphoric feeling, and to look around and see teammates with blood and band-aids and stitches and all this, just like okay, and maybe for a brief second it does come flashing through, like how hard it was, because you go, holy mackerel, that was 3 years, and this is it, and this is the final thing.
While the Memorial Cup is considered to be one of the hardest trophies in sports to win, a handful of teams and players have won it more than once. The Generals were the first back-to-back winners in 1939 and 1940. The Marlies accomplished the feat in 1955 and 1956, and the Montreal Junior Canadiens were back-to-back winners in 1969 and 1970.
Westminster Bruins 77 and 78, Cornwall 80 and 81, and the Medicine Hat Tigers now become the 6th team in Memorial Cup history to win back-to-back Memorial Cup
We're a
championship.
veteran-laden team, so we had a lot of guys that had some experience. We had real good talent. You know, we had toughness at that time in the Western League. You needed to have a little bit of everything.
Winning was the be-all, end-all, and you know, Russ Barlow was our general manager, and there was no second place, and that was great. You know, for all of us, it's. I think it's led to great things for most of us in our lives moving forward.
The commitment it takes to win, the teamwork, you know, the time that you put towards it, from your training to your on-ice stuff, and that's grown even more today. You can't take it for granted. You've got to put the work in.
We had a group of guys that was just willing to do more than the guy next to him, and that was the reason we won.
I remember winning the second year, and Dean Schnauth and I looking at each other, and we were exhausted. We were just so tired, and we were proud, and the jubilation was still there, but there was more of a sense of pride and just being proud to be able to do it back to back.
Winning the second one was pretty sweet, and understanding, you know, it's a tough road to get to the Memorial Cup, right? Like they say the Stanley Cup's the hardest to win. I mean, the Memorial Cup, you don't have guys for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Like it's a short window, and so it's a very tough thing to win, and to win it back to back was pretty amazing.
It was pretty cool to be able to say you won your last game of the year. Not many teams can do that, you know, one team a year gets to say they won the last game of the year.
Well, I think it's something that you carry on the rest of your life, and you're always known as the Double Cup Memorial Cup team of Medicine Hat, and it was a unique team that we had. I think as whether or not you went on and played in the NHL or the American Hockey League or played in Europe or retired after junior, it's something that every player that played on those two teams can be very proud of.
The Swift Current Broncos opened the 1986 Western Hockey League season on an incredible high. The tiny Saskatchewan community welcomed the Broncos back from Lethbridge, Alberta 14 years after they had left. Junior hockey was back in Swift Current, and the locals were thrilled. But on the second to the last day of 1986, the Broncos were just back from their Christmas break and on the bus heading to Regina for a division game against the Pats. Moments after leaving Swift Current, the bus hit a patch of black ice and flipped off the highway. 4 Broncos players, Trent Creasy, Scott Kruger, Chris Mantica, and Brent Ruff, were killed in the accident.
I think somehow the players figured out a way how to deal with the trauma that came with and the aftermath that came with that bus accident. I mean, there was family members of some of the teammates, but you know, they were all your close friends. And I think it was a little bit of a rallying point for us, like the guys that were on the bus that actually went on to play in the Memorial Cup in '89. It was, you know, if there was one thing that we could do it for, it would be for those guys.
We were forced to grow up a little bit quicker than most 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds because of the bus accident, and having to deal with situations that most people don't have to deal with at that time.
It was an unfortunate accident, but you know, with the support and the embrace of the community, we were able to move past it.
It was a time where the players really didn't know how to grieve or deal with it.
You definitely, you know, look at life differently. At 18 years old or 17, you think yourself pretty invincible. And to see something like that happen, it really makes you focus on what you want to do, look forward in life, and say, you know what, if I want to accomplish something, you know, now's the opportunity. I can't just postpone it. There wasn't a lot of us still left around in '89, but there was 5 or 6 guys that you know, had that to play for, had that in the back of our minds, and I think the other players respected that. They knew what it meant, and you know, that was something that I think really rallied our team together.
You have the patch, the 4-leaf clover, and you see the pictures and you see what's happened. But it's not something you're thinking about when you're playing, and really no one really spoke about it.
A hockey game ain't gonna rattle you after you've had 4 of your buddies die. And I think that's basically like how we went through this. Is, you know, we never got rattled. It was like, you know, a chance to, you know, do it for the guys, and also move on.
You know, the death of my brother kind of brought me to the point where saying, yeah, I want to do this for him.
Saskatchewan Place in Saskatoon, the venue for the 1989 Memorial Cup Championship, and we're heading into overtime to decide the 1989
If you talk to a
winners.
lot of the guys, I mean, they'll tell you we probably played our worst hockey in the Memorial Cup. And somehow we found a way to still win.
I just remember Trev making an unbelievable save with about a minute left to go in the game.
Yellow Agate was in front of my net, and I had made a save where I caught it under my arm, and he was wide open and pretty intense, right? So again, I think that save picked us up a little bit, and the urgency creeped up a little bit, and then of course went into overtime.
Bob Wilkie gets it. You wouldn't see it now, but I think he tried to beat two guys and faked a couple shots, and he drew a lot of guys to him and move it back to his defensive partner, Darren Kruger, who was one of the smartest guys ever to play this game, then I think. And I just knew I had to get to the front of the net.
He's a long guy at the point. I think we had everybody else down by the net, and so he just brought it back to me, and I went out and I faked a shot and wanted him to commit to it, which he did, and then I just kind of, I was looking at Brian Sackett right beside the net, kind of behind the net, and I just threw it at the net, and Tim got a stick on it.
If I didn't deflect it, I think Brian Sackett was right behind me. He probably scores the goal if I don't get a stick on it.
It was jubilation from there. It was unbelievable.
We accomplished what we set out to do, and that's to win the Memorial Cup, and for the four guys that lost their lives, more than anything, that was the sense of accomplishment. I think when we got that cup, and basically it's like, this is for you, I think everybody felt proud. Because I think if you look at the town, you look at the team, you look at everything that people had gone through, right? From the new team coming, the excitement, to the bus crash, right? To winning Memorial Cup. I mean, that is an emotional journey like nothing else.
In the early history of the Memorial Cup, the Oshawa Generals enjoyed some dominant years. They played in an incredible 6 Memorial Cups in a 7-year period from 1938 to 1944, winning national championships in 1939, 1940, and 1944. The Generals lost their home when Oshawa's Hamby Arena burned down in 1953. They rejoined the league 10 years later and played in the Memorial Cup once again in 1966 with a young Bobby Orr leading the way. But it was another budding superstar that helped the Generals claim their 4th Memorial Cup championship. Eric Lindros led the Generals to one of their most memorable wins ever in 1990.
Big E came in, and he kind of got the ball rolling a little bit too. Just with the way he was, and everybody was worked up about this new superstar, and he added to our team. He was great. And the one thing that people don't really realize is how hard he worked. Like I thought I was one of the top guys with my work ethic and practice. When he came, he took us to the next level. If you didn't battle against him, he'd run you over. You had to show up to practice, and that was one of the things that from being on the inside was amazing about him.
When the trade went through, it was just this is realistic now, and something that was I wouldn't say a dream. It would have been tough, but the addition of Eric definitely solidified our chances for sure.
The guys were focused, and it was all about winning. It was all about getting the group together and having as much fun as possible. But at the heart of it was a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice.
There was a lot of hype, and what protected us was when we went to the room, the dressing room with the guys, we were protected. We were in this little bubble, and we really, I think, didn't know how good we were.
The support that we had from our fans and our city was special. It was second to none. It was great. It was a perfect setup for fans, and hopefully they thought that the hockey is entertaining as I did. I thought it was great. I thought it was great hockey.
When I did walk into the final game in the Memorial Cup, and I looked up in the Cops Coliseum scoreboard as we got off the bus, it said, "This game is sold out tonight." And that was the first time that it really like, wow, people, you know, like we were in this bubble and we didn't really realize how big it was. So that was for the first moment you kind of stood back and like, oh, this is a big one.
I don't think one person thought it was easy. We weren't even considered the best team in the country going into it.
A lot of players know that once their last game is done, that's the highest level of hockey they're going to be playing at. So it does have more significance as you get older, I guess. So the story gets better anyways.
We got into the overtime, and I can remember saying to myself, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but I know my man's not going to score. And that was my thought process, wrong or right, going through. I was like, my guy's not going to score. And we had a bad line change. I think we were down to 5D, and that was a long game. And you know, I think the stress of the pressure being at the Memorial Cup, you know, wears on you after a while. And I can remember one of the particular players on our team came off, and it was a bad line change. And I'm not a particularly good skater, and out of pure fear and adrenaline going through my brain, thinking this is gonna last a lifetime if this guy scores, I actually caught him by the time the puck came to him. It's the fastest I ever skated in my life.
Ironically, we won the Memorial Cup on a goal scored by probably, if you went into placed odds or bets on who would score the winning goal. No offense to Billy, but I don't think he'd be all that high up on the list.
It happened quick. I remember the D-man went to wrap it, and I remember checking my shoulder and say, oh my God, my wingers, you know, he's left the zone. And my first response was to kind of go get him, and I said, no, I can go get the puck. And I did, and I just actually put it on net. And I had one selfish moment when I heard the fans go, you know, and it went in and everyone started coming out. I had one small selfish moment where I said to myself, wow, I think I got the assist on the winning goal. Can you believe that? What are the odds, you know?
When Bill scored that goal, I guess you could have picked 1,000 people in the world to shoot that puck, and he wouldn't have been on that list, but I'm glad he did.
It sucks for my teammates, as I've always said, because they have to live with the fact that I've scored that, and it doesn't go away for life, you know, so they're always busted on me. And the goal, for some reason, never goes away. It always comes up, and I think my own children are scarred from it, from hearing the story of the goal.
I think that lots of credit goes back to Etch and out about because of where we are today. He's been a tremendous leader. He was someone that you know, for him to look at the players and make sure that that player was to have a great experience playing major junior, and it was something that that player will remember for the rest of his life.
It was he, in my view, who really was instrumental in bringing the tournament format into being. And in doing that, it was about bringing our country together. Because there was some real, very real political aspects to the makeup of our great country back then. And the tournament was really done in many ways to help bring our country together.
My father's passion involved with the game was the growth and development of it. He wanted to make it sustainable for small markets as well as large markets, to providing not only the entertainment value, but the opportunity for players to have the best of both worlds.
Sport is so powerful, so important, should be used as an instrument to make things better in society. For people, and Ed understood that, and he used that, and he was a builder of the CHL in the structure we are today. He was a great leader and a great person, and we all miss him.
I love the format we have currently because of the fact that it combines our league champions with a host club that is really critical to the success of the event overall. We need to have local interest to make sure that attendance is high and there's local engagement in that community, and that host team is very critical to that.
I look back to 1993 when the Memorial Cup was hosted in Sault Ste. Marie by the Greyhounds in the community. And in my opinion, what I saw there to a much greater extent than ever before, that the tournament was not just about 8 or 9 games on the ice. It was about a week-long event, totally embraced by the community. And it just seemed to take that whole celebration to a whole new level.
The city is great. The people are knowledgeable. They're passionate. They support the team. They demand a lot. They make the players accountable in the community. I think as players, as young men, I think we got it. The people are hardworking, blue collar. They get it. They want a hardworking team that represents their community in the Sioux with pride and passion. I think that's what we did.
They were great fans, and walking down the street, it's a small town, and you got like banners and posters all over the place. Let's go Hounds, let's go Hounds, let's win this one.
Playing at home in front of our crowd, and the building was rocking, the city was behind us, so it was a great atmosphere.
I think the second year, being so close to winning and knowing how hard it was to get back the second year, we had to stay on the ice, right, and watch Kamloops host a trophy and see all that stuff, and it was painful. I mean, to be so close yet so far.
When you're there the first 2 years in a row and you lose, it's heartbreaking, but there was no way we were losing that one, especially for the 9 guys, or I think it was 9 or 10 guys who were in all 3 Memorial Cups. I mean, it was just our third basically chance at it, and when we were hosting it, there was no way we were going to lose that.
I think you have to have special people to win championships like the Memorial Cup, and I think we had a special group for those 3 years.
They knew what the success and what the failures were in those 2 years, and were able to eliminate a lot of those, those missteps. And so for us, it was just perfect for us to kind of go into that tournament and have them had failed before. So we knew we had a great chance to win.
It was just a calm, almost really comfortable room that we knew we were getting into it. And the way that the city was buzzing and the experience that we had on our team, nothing's a slam dunk, but it felt right.
There was no entitlement, there was no pompousness from the players. We just generally just loved playing hockey, and we were just happy to wear the Sioux Greyhounds jersey and represent the Sioux, and I think we had success because of that. I think we were ready to win the Memorial Cup. We were built to win the Memorial Cup.
It was just so loud in there. Whenever we scored our first goal, I mean, it's just, you can see the guys on the bench just getting motivated and excited, and we just kept that going on. And then towards the end of the third there, when they started counting down, it was just unbelievable, and the air horns were going off, and it was just a great feeling.
I remember we called the timeout with about 20 seconds left, and Ted Nolan said, we're not calling a timeout to talk about strategies. We were up winning by 2. He wanted us to take it all in and say, hey, you guys deserve this. Listen to the crowd, listen to the emotion. Something I still remember to this day.
Robert Savard is the only player to ever win 3 consecutive Memorial Cup championships. He helped the Cornwall Royals win in 1980 and 1981, and then moved to the Kitchener Rangers for their championship run in 1982. The new Westminster Bruins made 4 straight trips to the Memorial Cup in the 1970s, winning in 1977, 1978, and in 1981. They moved to Kamloops to become the Junior Oilers. In 1984, they were renamed the Kamloops Blazers. And in 1992, they started one of the most memorable chapters in Memorial Cup history.
I think as a 16-year-old, your eyes get opened up fairly wide in a hurry. But I was fortunate to go through it with Tyson Nash and Darcy Tucker. We were all 3 16-year-olds at the time. And I think for that year, you look to the older players that we had on our team and almost want to be like them, I guess, in those situations as a young guy with the Scott Niedermayers and the Daryl Sadors and the Corey Hirsch. All part of a great organization and a great team.
We kind of knew something special was going on with our team. We had a lot of draft picks from the team that won the previous year. So we went into that year as the #1 team in the CHL and the favorites to win the Memorial Cup, and while hosting it.
When you host the Memorial Cup, you're so excited, but you want to get there the right way, and you want to earn it. Because the host team, typically if they lose out in the playoffs, they're still ending up in the Memorial Cup. So we wanted to take it all the way through, which we did.
And when we got an opportunity to win the Memorial Cup in front of our building, that was an experience I think that everybody on that team will remember. The white that the people would dress in, there was just a sea of people walking to the rink every day. The whole city, the whole crowd, everything was behind us, and it was such a special atmosphere that made it really an incredible time for all of us.
We had great leadership from the top on down with Bob Brown and Don Hay. I think those two gentlemen not only were mentors and guided us as young individuals and players, but they were kind of like father figures to us. It takes great leadership, and those two gentlemen were a huge part of our success as players. And then you look at the group of players that we had. We didn't just have good hockey players, we had good people.
And on every team, if you're going to win, guys have to accept roles, whether they like it or not. And I didn't like my role on that team. I wanted to be more of a goal scorer, but you got to suck it up. And ultimately, that role is what I played later on in my career in the NHL. And I learned how to be a mucker and a grinder, and play big penalty kill minutes and block shots. Those are not things you dream of as a kid. You dream about always scoring that goal on the power play.
Everything went on really well for us to start with. We were the team that got the bye into the finals. Everything was going well for us. You have to really fight your way through your league, and there's 4 tough rounds to get through. You get to the Memorial Cup, and now you have to do it all over again against the best teams in Canada from the Quebec League and the Ontario Hockey League. And those are one-game kind of showdowns. So if you don't have that great game, or you're not at your very best, there's a chance you might not win it. So it's a real tough trophy to win, and I think you gain a lot of respect for how hard it is to win.
It was incredible to share that Memorial Cup on that ice with those fans that were behind us. You knew that moment was your time, and you enjoyed it.
When you win something in front of your own building, the crowd, they're a part of it. They're invested in what's going on. They've paid to watch you play all year long. They're as excited as you are, and to be able to share that moment with the great fans that we had in Kamloops was something pretty special as well.
Your parents, they help you get there. And all those early mornings, the money that goes into getting your kid through hockey, that trophy, that day and that time was for them.
You want to be a part of history, and there's so many great players that have played in the Canadian Hockey League that have had great careers, have done some really special things, and for us to be a little bit separate from all those other great players because of our success that we had in that 3 or 4 year period in winning 3 Memorial Cups is something, again, that I find really special.
We were part of a dynasty there in Kamloops, and I don't know if that'll ever happen again.
I remember the first meeting we had with Michel Therrien in mid-August. The meeting was short and simple. We had 3 objectives. First, to win the regular season trophy. Second objective was to win the playoff trophy. And the third objective was to win the Memorial Cup. And that was it.
Before that, the last Quebec-based team was the Quebec Rampart in 1971, and now that we're at the first day of the camp, and they said to us, we're gonna win it. Every player was looking around and say, these guys are nuts.
We've put pressures on ourselves. We wanted to be different. We wanted to be the one to bring the cup back in Quebec. I have chills, just talking about the memories. And at the beginning of the season, maybe it was kind of, it's hard to achieve to win the Memorial Cup, especially in Quebec. But when we were at the trading deadline and we acquired a lot of good players, we knew we had the team to win it.
We had just a great group of, really not only talented players, but just players that were winners, really wanted to win.
Nobody placed us to win the Memorial Cup that year in 1996. I still remember on a few sports channels, they had all 4 teams and they had a percentage of each team, how many percent they could win it, and we were last at 2%. So probably these 2% were the one that, they didn't know what they were voting for.
And we kind of get pissed off that. And we took that as a motivation so we can win the Memorial Cup. And when we won it, I said, you didn't want to rank us first the whole year, but now we don't give you a choice. We are the best team.
We definitely use that as, as a spark, if you will, is one aspect, and just, Michel Terrien was really good at like finding those things that would like he could use, you know, and especially like right before you went on the ice to like get you going.
The mindset was really big for us. We were building on that. We're not there to look at the show, we're there to give the show. That first game was for real, and we were pumped. I mean, we were pumped, and good things happen sometimes. And the second game, we played the Petes, and we got spanked 6-2. Like, whoa, something. We're not that good, maybe. There's other teams that came here for play too.
Losing against the Petes, you know, brought us back on our feet and say, you know, it won't be easy. We knew it wouldn't be easy. You know, you're playing against the best team in the country. But yeah, it gave us, it brought us on our feet, and it told us that we need to work on a few details to make the difference.
The championship game was something pretty strange. We knew that what one game, you know, it's you go back as a hero at home, or nobody's gonna remember you like the other teams before.
And when we got there against the Petes, against the crowd, against the fog, it was a really hot day, that 19th of May, and we had everything against us. But the mindset was built since day one in training camp that we were there for that game, and we were not gonna let anybody beat us that game.
It was like a Hollywood movie, and it's something as we will never forget.
I mean, there was fog throughout the whole game. They had to stop the game many times. You know, like there was a lot of that could have been a major distraction, and it was a tight game.
You saw 2 minutes with 4 goals, you're just like, all right, this is it. And you're still playing the game, knowing that you're gonna jump on the ice and you're gonna be a champion for the Memorial Cup. It was a big thing for us. We talked about it so much during the season that it was just such a big accomplishment. And look at today, 26 years after, we're still talking about it. It wasn't only a win for the Granby Predators, it was a win for the whole Q.
It's hard to realize, you know, at that time. It's probably more, you know, the day after and the week after we realized, you know, how big that was what we did.
It was just like winning the Stanley Cup in Montreal as a lower level. That's what it was for Granby when we won the Memorial Cup.
We brought back credibility and respect. Hockey is big here. They all know about hockey. Everybody remember where they were doing.
Kind of one of those surreal moments you think back on that, you know, in time it was you've reached the kind of the pinnacle of, you know, junior hockey.
It's something I will remember for the rest of my life.
It was a unique year for the Memorial Cup, was because of there was an NHL lockout. So you can put everything together. All the teams weren't losing their best players to the National Hockey League, so it was all the best.
We were pretty good powerhouse in the OHL that year, and you know, we set a couple of records with win streaks and all that stuff, and you know, to be a part of that team, I think it's something that you'll never forget, and you'll never forget those guys on that team.
You want to win everything. You want to win every game. And so we never really had, our team was built strong enough that we always had guys pulling each other. We knew it internally what we needed to do, and I don't know if there was an internal arrogance about us, but it never really showed outside. But internally, we knew we were a strong team and had the ability to do something great.
They had a target on their back right from day one, and you know what? To their credit, they showed up every night, and they were the team to beat for a reason. So to be traded there was definitely strange, to say the least. Being weird going into that dressing room for the first time would be an understatement.
We wanted to do it, you know, the right way, not have any free breaks on it. You know, to kind of just challenging ourselves, really. You know, sometimes you get a little lax if you know you're going to be there anyway. So we wanted to make sure, prove a point that we didn't just get in. We steamrolled our way in.
We're not just focused on, you know, hosting the Memorial Cup, we're not just focused on winning the OHL. We want to run the table here. So our goal was to take this thing from start to finish, and there was no letdown at any point, and it was the mindset that I think that you need to win that trophy.
It's a special trophy, and for these young men trying to win, and it's fun to watch them, the excitement, the downs, the ups. It's the way it is, and that's where sports is. That's why it's exciting. You got to have character on your team and that want to win, and when you play a big tournament, sometimes you're in a different role that you want to be, and you have to sacrifice for your team. That's what coaches are looking for in the National Hockey League, just like we're looking for kids that play both sides of the puck, character, and definitely with skill.
Having to go against Sidney Crosby, obviously I think it was a perfect storm there again of just having a top tier guy, and all the eyes of the hockey world are on you.
Once the Memorial Cup came, it was there was a lot of talk about Sydney and a lot of talk about our team a lot of nights.
The first sort of eye-opening experience was our first game here to open the Memorial Cup. We played against Rimouski, and they came out. I think they went up on us early, and it was sort of like, wow, because you can watch them in video as much as you want, but you don't really have a sense of feel of how fast they are, how they move the puck, how efficient they are. And that was sort of like, okay, we got our work cut out for us. I don't want to say we came out slow, but we came out tentative as a team. There was a bit of a feeling out process to see how good is Crosby. Early on, Dale altered our lineup a little bit to have a strict defensive matchup against Sydney's line, and that sort of worked well for us. It allowed the other three lines to go out and sort of play against the rest of their team. As long as we could neutralize him, and doing that, it worked in our favor.
Two good teams going at it, you never really know which way it's going to go. So we figured we had a good plan, and just see what happens.
A long time waiting for London to come here, and they appreciate it that the kids did what they did all year plus, and beat a really good team in the finals 4-0. It was like we all know how special Sid the Kid is, and they had a good team around them too. So it was a good competition. That's what it's all about. It is not easy to win, but you love the competition because it gets your fires burning in your belly.
I just remember grabbing it and feeling so excited and honored to have won a Memorial Cup, and as quick as I could, I wanted to get it into the rest of the guys' hands.
You don't talk about our Windsor Spitfire team without talking about Mickey Renaud and the leader that he was, and he paved the way for us, and he was exactly the person that you learned about leadership from. He treated us all amazing regardless of the age, and it's something you'll never forget. He really brought our team together, and he was just the ultimate leader for us.
He was just one of those guys that I always looked up to from a young age, and everybody else did. He was fun-loving, he was competitive. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He did everything that you want to see in a captain and more.
One day he's there, next day he's gone, and, for no particular reason. So it was a shock to us, to the city, and you really saw how much he meant to so many people there, and he still does.
It's a devastating thing to have to go through, and I mean, I can't imagine as a 16 or 17-year-old, being in that environment what it would have been like, but I think the fact that they all sort of bonded and just sort of stuck together in that room and just, leaned on one another to sort of get through that and move forward. And I mean, we all learned that in life, that life doesn't let you sort of stop and stand in the moment. It forces you to continue to push forward and move on, and that team eventually did move on from that.
We lose our captain, and that was a horrible experience for all of us. But again, it brought us together closer as a group, and guys really bonded together and got over that and brought ourselves to the next level.
After winning the OHL championship in 2009, the Windsor Spitfires rolled into the Memorial Cup in Rimouski, Quebec, expecting to challenge for the national championship. But they dropped their first two games of the tournament and were one loss away from being eliminated.
Paper's counting us out. They're saying that we don't have the grit to do it, or we didn't put together the right team, or we're not playing the right way, and it took us sitting down in here, and the coaches come in and just calm us all down. The leadership group was calm everybody down, and we just could look around and know, okay, we can do this. We got this. We're the team to do this year.
As a team, we were still confident. There was no, lack of trust or doubt in our minds that, it was done. I think before that next game, we went out as a team and had kind of just the day to ourselves. And I think we went and played pool for the afternoon and just kind of relaxed and kind of got our minds out of the game in the tournament, and just, that's kind of what we did all year. And then once we did that, we just got rolling.
We just took it one game at a time, and obviously it worked out.
I think that's our team in 2010 was the best team assembled in the Memorial Cup, just by the results and by what we did in the 4 games in Brandon.
We had guys that were ready to play in the NHL at that point, and they're playing in the OHL on our hockey team. Like, it was incredible.
Everyone's seen the clip 100 times, is when Hamonic buried Halsey, and I thought it was over. I kind of whipped my lanyard off and ran down there. Then I got halfway down, and the doctor gave me the sign like he's okay. I'm like, really?
I think if it was anybody else too, it would have been a different story, but he, bounces right back, comes next shift, puts one through his legs at the blue line, goes down, scores. Everything kind of came together as you would want it to, as you always dreamed it would be.
I'm very proud to be able to say that I could be a part of that and be able to lift a cup at the end of it twice, bring it to my teammates, bring it to my coaching staff, bring it to all these guys that helped me along the way to get to where I was. That was incredible.
When you do that, you really gel as a team, and every time I see one of the guys part of that team, you remember those things, and you remember all the things that happened, and quite happy with it. That cup was very special for me.
And that's the last time you'll ever see those guys as a team, and you made it to the last stretch. There's nothing else you could win as a team, and a lot of faces you'll remember, and that's going to stay forever.
When a team can put their mind to something, regardless of the characters, regardless of the ego, regardless of the skill, when you got 23 guys that have one focused goal together, and it doesn't matter who's leading the charge, who's going to be the hero, you could accomplish some pretty special things.
We talk about different eras, but one thing that never changes is the closeness of a hockey team, and that family, that sense of family that you have when when we have success together.
We went through a lot together, whether it be school, ups and downs, girlfriends come and go, things of that nature. We just all kind of built a bond that we all are going to share for the rest of our lives.
Guys get together every once in a while, and you tell the same stories, and you laugh about the same stuff, and it's probably funnier now than it was when it happened. So it's really good. It's kind of a secondary family that you had growing up.
I didn't take it for granted. Coming to that rink every day with those guys was a privilege. And it was a special thing where, when you're on the ice with those guys, it was just, there was this calming aura, and you wanted to be part of it. You wanted to step up and do your job so you could be part of it.
I think that's what makes it special when you look back and you look at the chemistry and the friendships and the bonds and, all the ups and downs, and then to come out on top is special.
I look back in those days of the bunch of kids really that came together and gelled as a team. They didn't care what it took. If a couple guys had to, maybe not play as much or different roles that they might not have been used to in the past, they just accepted it and played hard.
Played on a few different teams, but to have that environment as close as the guys were, I've only experienced that a few times in my hockey career.
To this day, my best friends, guys I talk to on a daily basis or a weekly basis, are guys that I won Memorial Cups with. So there's a bond there that you have for life, and it's a friendship and a brotherhood, because you went to war with each other, right? And you stood up for each other, and there's not too many people that can say that.
We're young kids, we're impressionable, and to me that's the beauty of junior hockey is, the life lessons it teaches you, I just don't think you can find that just anywhere.
Obviously, you learn how to win in life. I mean, there's different ways that you don't have to be an athlete to do that. You go through experiences, and some knock you down, some, you have success and you learn from, just like you learn from, negative situations too.
I think just the fact you played so many tough series really prepared you for the NHL. And the longevity of it, the length and the duration, of the season, I think it was key.
There's no question that the things that I learned about leadership and the things that I learned about intensity and dealing with pressure and working as part of a team were all skills that I was able to transfer and use in the military, and it served me well.
There's a lot of sacrifices. When I look at that rink, I see all of that. I see that, I can't say that I'm a winner. I won the Memorial Cup. That's huge. I've been on the biggest team in my country, and I'm a winner.
Through a season, you have to go through adversity, I find sometimes, to make yourself bigger and stronger, and being able to adapt to anything that's thrown at you. And we did go through that, but you could tell throughout the whole season, and mostly at the end of the year, we were one group and one solid group, and we're all playing for each other, and there was nobody playing for themselves.
I still remember that last shift, the last seconds were ticking down the clock. It was our last shift ever in the junior leagues, and it's almost like the ending of a great movie.
I was lucky enough to win a few championships, but nothing compares to that Memorial Cup. So it's really a special night, a special event, and someone that's won it knows what it's all about and what it takes to actually make it to that level of hockey.
To win it when your dad won it is special as well, and I had the chance to win it my first year. So first year junior, won Memorial Cup, so I've been very fortunate on my side to win it, and we had a great team, a great bunch of guys, and it was just a lot of fun.
We all start out the same way. We're all on backyard rinks, and our fathers and mothers and uncles and everyone takes you to the rink, and so to reach the pinnacle for your age group at the time it's a beautiful thing.
I know a lot of great NHL players wish they had won the Memorial Cup, no matter how many accolades and trophies and Stanley Cups they won as pros. It's a very special trophy to win, and to bring it back to Halifax, or to bring it back to Red Deer, or to bring it back to Guelph. It's a fantastic thing.
Anytime you can win the last game of the season, it's a big deal, and the Memorial Cup is the equivalent of the NHL Stanley Cup.
You're in the last game there, you're on the bench, and you're up, and all the guys on the bench, they're standing, they're looking around, and it's coming down to the final buzzer.
It's something for those players between the age of 16 to 20, with the number of years that they've been playing in the CHL, to reach out that moment, to go to the Memorial Cup final and to be able to win it. It's a great accomplishment for them.
Hockey fans in this country look at the Memorial Cup as the next most significant and probably the most meaningful for Canadians because of the history and tradition attached to junior hockey and the champions of the Memorial Cup.
A real renewed emphasis on what the meaning of the Memorial Cup is. It's our obligation to teach our young people you know, and it's an exciting part of the process.
That championship's so hard to win. You only have a couple years to do it, and to be a part of that team, to have your name on there for life, it's pretty special.
We were winning, but we were having fun, and it goes hand in hand, and truly a special moment and a time that I will never forget.
Just to grab that trophy and share it with that team was unbelievable.
That was a more satisfying experience for me than scoring the winning goal in the Stanley Cup Finals for the Montreal Canadiens.
You just never forget what it took to win a Memorial Cup, and I always use that as a bit of bragging rights. When you ask guys, anybody played in the NHL that won a Memorial Cup is on another level.
I know a few guys that haven't won the Memorial Cup. They're a little ticked off because they were pretty close. Big, big, big thrill when you win it. You see the guys. You think back when you're a teenager, at least you did something. You won the Memorial Cup. Boy, that's really something.
I had people come up to me that played many years in the NHL and won 4 and 5 Stanley Cups, and they said that they would give up a Stanley Cup ring to have a Memorial Cup ring, and that speaks volumes to what people actually think about Major Junior and the fact that the Memorial Cup is such a special trophy to a lot of people.
As you get a little bit older here and you start having the family, you start looking back on those days, and sometimes you still, even at this point in time, pinch yourself to think, boy, how lucky you are.
Having your name on it's like the Stanley Cup. You're gonna sometime you can bring your kids if you want to, and have them look at it, and that's fun. That they can't take away.